"This must end," Blorvax intoned, his voice a guttural vibration that sent ripples through his gelatinous mass. "Humanity defies reason, logic, and cosmic order. We extend diplomacy, they mock us. We grant them scientific enlightenment, they turn it into entertainment. We threaten them, and they," he shuddered, the color of his form darkening to a shade of agitated blue, "laugh." A murmur swept through the chamber. Voices of species long feared in the galaxy. The insectoid Vecthari clicked their mandibles in agreement, their iridescent wings twitching in agitation. The reptilian Svarzal warriors, clad in armor woven from the scales of their own dead, grumbled their assent. Even the enigmatic Mechaborn collective, cybernetic sentience, whose cold logic dictated their every move, pulsed in synchronized red, signifying their rare emotional consensus. Blorvax gestured toward the hovering hologram at the center of the chamber. It displayed the most damning evidence of all, a series of images showcasing human audacity. One slide depicted human soldiers constructing makeshift grills over active plasma vents, grilling meat while dodging enemy fire. Another showed a human astronaut in a death-defying spacewalk, repairing a damaged hull with duct tape and a wrench, whistling an old Earth tune. And the worst, an image of human diplomats meeting the Pran-9 Empire's war council while wearing cheap suits, chewing gum, and asking where the nearest restroom was. "This cannot continue," Blorvax growled, his translucent skin darkening further. "We have no choice but to unleash the Silent Claw." Gasps rippled through the chamber. The Silent Claw, elite, remorseless, the pinnacle of assassin craft, were reserved only for the greatest threats to galactic order. Empires had crumbled before their silent precision. They did not fail. A portal irised open at the far end of the hall. From the cold void of the corridor, 3 figures stepped forward. Vrixen, the Shadow Hunter, moved first, his body an undulating mirage of color, shifting seamlessly into the background of the chamber. His golden eyes gleamed beneath the shimmer of adaptive camouflage, slit pupils narrowing as he scanned the assembly. A whisper of movement, and he was gone, reappearing instantly at the base of the dais, his claws leaving no sound against the floor. Beside him, Kazar the Mindrender oozed forward, his cephalopodin form encased in a gravity-resistant exosuit. Bioluminescent tendrils pulsed with the eerie glow of his psionic prowess. The air around him felt thick, charged, as though he carried the weight of 100 whispered nightmares. His thoughts did not speak so much as impose themselves upon those around him. Last came Mechaborn 88, the cold inevitability of machine precision given form. Towering over his companions, his metallic chassis gleamed under the crystalline light, optics scanning every organic in the room with calculated indifference. 100 microweapons lay concealed within his frame, every joint, every surface a potential instrument of death. Blorvax shifted his bulk in what might have been satisfaction. "You know your mission." Kazar's voice slid into the minds of the gathered delegates, like oil dripping through a crack in the psyche. "We do. You will go to Lunar Base Delta, where humanity's greatest strategists and military minds convene," Blorvax declared. "You will strike swiftly, quietly. The base will be erased. Earth will know its place." Mechaborn 88 spoke, his voice an emotionless symphony of static and cold finality. "We accept." The chamber dimmed as the assassins turned, vanishing into the portal. Their ship was a needle of blackened obsidian, slipping undetected through the void toward its prey. Within, Vrixen meditated, sharpening his claws against the tempered steel of his gauntlets. Kizar floated in silence, his mind sifting through the innumerable thoughts of the lesser creatures across the cosmos. Mechaborn 88 calibrated his internal systems, ensuring every weapon was primed. Lunar Base Delta loomed ahead, bathed in the pale glow of Earth's satellite. A human military installation, boasting a full garrison, orbital defenses, and the highest concentration of Earth's tactical leadership. It would be a massacre. They breached the station with ease, slipping through the shadows, bypassing security systems with technology centuries beyond human comprehension. Their first targets were chosen: high-ranking officers, tacticians, war planners. They spread through the corridors, each assassin moving to their designated marks. And then they encountered her. She was not a commander. She was not a soldier. She wasn't even holding a weapon. A woman stood in the corridor, mopping the floor. Her name tag read, Janet McAllister. She did not react with fear. She did not reach for an alarm. She did not even acknowledge them at first, humming under her breath as she swiped the mop along the polished surface. Vrixen hesitated. This was not in the mission parameters. Metroborn 88 sensors flickered with confusion. The target did not register as a threat. Khazar's telepathic probe recoiled. Something about her mind was disruptive. Not in the way trained psychics were. No, this was something worse. Her thoughts were erratic. She was wondering what was for lunch. She was annoyed about a co-worker who kept taking the last cup of coffee without refilling the pot. Janet sighed, finally noticing the trio. She frowned, eyeing their menacing stances, their weapons, their very presence. "You guys tracking dirt in here?" She gestured at the pristine floor. "I just mopped." For a moment, no one moved. Vrixen, master of shadows, blinked. "What?" Jan dipped the mop back into the bucket, wrung it out, and pointed it at them like a disappointed mother scolding kids for playing in mud. "Look, I don't know what weird cosplay event y'all are doing, but I gotta finish my shift. So unless you're here to help scrub the toilets, clear out." Metroborn 88's sensors twitched. Cosplay? Was this an Earth warrior ritual? Khazar extended his psychic influence, attempting to paralyze her. It was effortless, a simple mental command to render her immobile. Nothing happened. In fact, she scratched her nose and sighed in boredom. "That's cute, Squiddy," she muttered. "You having a stroke or something?" Khazar recoiled as if slapped. Metroborn 88 recalibrated. A new assessment was required. Vrixen, irritated beyond reason, finally lunged forward, claws outstretched, aiming to end this farce. Janet moved. It was not a trained dodge. It was not an evasive maneuver. She simply stepped back at the exact wrong moment. Vrixen's strike missed by half an inch. His foot hit the wet surface of the freshly mopped floor. The assassin, whose name was whispered in terror across 100 worlds, slipped. There was a moment of silence as Vrixen, arms flailing, claws grasping at nothing, crashed onto his back, skidding down the corridor with a painful yelp. Jan clicked her tongue. "Told you." Metroborn 88 turned to Khazar, adjusting calculations. Potential threat level, unknown. Jan adjusted her grip on the mop, giving them a long, unimpressed look. "All right, which one of you chuckleheads is going to clean this up?" Vrixen lay sprawled on the floor, his once pristine camouflage flickering in and out like a malfunctioning holo display. His claws twitched as he struggled to regain control over his limbs, his mind still grappling with the indignity of what had just happened. A master of silent execution, reduced to an undignified heap by a well-timed patch of wet floor. His jaw tightened, humiliation burning hotter than any plasma wound. Metroborn 88 remained rigid, processing the event with the efficiency of a machine designed for war. His sensors scanned the janitor, recalculating her as an anomaly rather than a non-threat. No biological enhancements, no detectable weaponry, just a human middle-aged, unremarkable, dressed in a jumpsuit speckled with cleaning chemicals. Yet she had done something no opponent had before, disrupted their rhythm, fractured their precision. Khazar's psionic tendrils flared with agitation, his body pulsing an uneasy shade of violet. His mental influence had not just been resisted, it had been ignored, as though his abilities had been wasted on a mind too occupied with mundane irritations to be properly controlled. He reached out again, more forcefully this time, pushing past the barriers of thought, seizing at her subconscious. A flood of thoughts slammed into him with the force of a gravitational collapse. Did I remember to turn the coffee machine off? I swear if I find one more idiot who doesn't rinse their dishes. When's my next day off? Oh wait, never, because apparently I'm the only one who cleans around here. I hate Karen in accounting. She knows why. It was noise. Unstructured. A stream of frustration, routine, and minor grievances wrapped in a stubborn, impenetrable wall of indifference. There was no opening, no weakness to exploit, no fear to amplify. She simply did not care. Kizar wrenched his consciousness back, reeling from the sheer mundanity of her inner world. He had unraveled the minds of warlords, shattered the psyches of planetary leaders. But this was an impenetrable fortress built on apathy and caffeine dependence. Jan sighed, adjusting her grip on the mop, barely paying them any mind. "All right, Squidward, I don't know what you just did, but you're making a face like someone forced you to sit through an HR meeting." Mechivorn 88's targeting systems recalibrated. This engagement required termination. Plasma apertures within his forearm hummed to life, heating to lethal capacity. A simple elimination. One blast, one less problem. Before the charge could release, Jan exhaled in irritation, lifting her mop and slapping it against his metal torso with a wet smack. The station's janitorial-grade disinfectant solution was designed for deep sanitation, corrosive enough to strip bioorganic contaminants from surfaces while being safe for human skin. It was not, however, designed for high-density alloys containing sensitive neural linkages. Mechivorn 88's systems locked. Error messages flooded his internal diagnostics as the liquid seeped into the minute gaps between his plating. Warning signs flared across his vision. Foreign contaminant detected. Immediate system purge required. His left arm jerked involuntarily. His right optical sensor flickered. Internal stabilizers began running subroutines to compensate for the interference. Jan squinted at the robotic assassin as he convulsed. Guess I should have read the label on that stuff." Vrixen, regaining some semblance of composure, pushed himself upright, claws flexing. His pride demanded blood. With an aggressive burst of motion, he lunged, shifting his form mid-air to blend seamlessly into the environment. He reached for her throat, only for his momentum to be betrayed once again by the freshly mopped floor. His feet skidded. He barely had time to adjust before his trajectory took him straight into the janitor's supply cart, sending an avalanche of cleaning supplies raining down onto his head. Bottles of degreaser, glass cleaner, and an upturned box of heavy-duty trash bags buried him in a mess entirely unbecoming of an elite assassin. A groan rose from the pile. One clawed hand emerged, gripping the edge of the cart in a desperate bid for stability. Jan folded her arms, watching unimpressed. "You good there, chameleon boy?" Kizar, now seething abandoned subtlety. He summoned a wave of psionic energy, distorting the air with shimmering waves of raw mental force. Reality twisted at the edges of perception as he prepared to unleash an attack capable of reducing the human's mind to nothingness. Jan, unaware or unimpressed by the psychic onslaught, sighed and massaged her temple. "Buddy, I've had to work 12-hour shifts, deal with drunk interns puking in airlocks, and I once saw a grown man cry because the coffee machine broke. Whatever you're doing, it ain't worse than that." She bent down, retrieved a nearby bottle of industrial-strength ammonia, and casually flung the contents toward him. The moment the first droplets hit Kizar's exosuit, the reaction was immediate. The cephalopodon alien shrieked, recoiling as the chemical seared against his hypersensitive skin. The telepathic storm collapsed as he twisted away, his tendrils flailing in agony. Jan clicked her tongue. "Should have told me you were allergic." Vrixen finally freed himself from the janitorial wreckage. His pupils constricted into slits of unrestrained fury. His pride as a hunter had been stripped away. He had endured physical pain, battlefield injuries, near-death experiences, but never had he suffered a humiliation so thorough, so absolute. Mechivorn 88 systems re-engaged, his targeting recalibrating for an immediate strike. Kizar, still smoldering from his chemical burns, pulsed in sheer frustration. All three of them moved at once. Jan's mop, slick with cleaning solution, whipped through the air, colliding with Vrixen's temple before he could vanish from sight. The force of the impact sent him sprawling once more, his camouflage short-circuiting into an erratic strobe of colors. Mechivorn 88, adjusting for attack trajectories, failed to account for the now increased slickness of the floor. As he stepped forward, his metal frame met the undeniable force of physics. His legs shot out from under him. The assassin, built for warfare and planetary sieges, collapsed onto his back with a metallic clang, his advanced sensory nodes struggling to compute how his greatest adversary had become a simple sanitation hazard. Khazar, now entirely disregarding finesse, lashed out with his tendrils, attempting to ensnare her in a grip capable of crushing bones. Jan ducked. The tendrils whipped past, catching onto the janitorial cart. Khazar barely had time to register his mistake before Jan gave it a solid push. The cart, wheels screeching against the floor, shot forward, dragging the alien telepath with it. He gave a strangled warble before being yanked straight into a supply closet. The door slammed shut behind him. Silence. Jan exhaled, stretching her arms over her head. Vrixen lay motionless, one eye twitching as he muttered incoherently to himself. Mechaborn 88's optics flickered in distress as his systems attempted to reboot. From inside the supply closet, a muffled, miserable groan echoed. Jan adjusted her mop, tapping it lightly against the floor. "You done?" None of them moved. She shrugged. "Cool. Now, unless you want to start paying rent, I suggest you clean up this mess you made before I file a complaint." The Silent Claw, feared across the galaxy, architects of countless assassinations, did not respond. Jan shook her head. "Didn't think so." She turned, walking away, leaving 3 of the deadliest killers in the universe to wallow in their collective defeat. And not once did she look back. Blorvax's tendrils twitched as he reviewed the footage, the undeniable, unthinkable evidence. Vrixen slipping like a clumsy hatchling. Khazar trapped in a janitorial closet, his psychic prowess rendered meaningless. Mechavorn 88 disabled by a cleaning solution. And at the center of it all, standing unbothered, mopping, was the human. A janitor. A woman of no special rank, no genetic enhancements, no strategic brilliance, just an infuriating, indifferent defiance to all logic. A ripple of nervous energy spread through the assembled delegates. The Vekthari clicked their mandibles in uncertainty. The Svarzal warriors, whose entire existence revolved around the concept of honor through combat, cast uneasy glances at one another. The Mechavorn representative, an elder model with centuries of battlefield experience, let out a rare, calculated vocalization. Error. Data conflicts with expected outcomes. Blorvax slammed a tendril against the dais, the impact resonating through the chamber. Humanity mocks us. We send assassins, they send cleaning staff and defeat our finest. This species defies all rational projection models. The council erupted into anxious chatter, each species confronting a terrifying reality. Humanity was not merely unpredictable, it was incomprehensible. They did not play by the established rules of interstellar conflict. They did not respond with fear or reverence. They simply existed, unbothered by the weight of the galactic hierarchy, and in doing so, had become the single greatest existential threat to order itself. Blorvax's color deepened into a vengeful crimson. "We have only one option left. We deploy the Armada." Gasps rippled through the chamber. The Galactic Armada, a coalition of the deadliest warships from every major species, had only been unleashed twice in recorded history. Once to eradicate the swarm worlds of Zypher, an insectoid species that had threatened to consume half the known universe, and once to quell the rogue AI uprising of the Synthicor Wars. Both had been seen as necessary apocalyptic interventions. Now, humanity was being placed in that same category. A Vekthari delegate, his wings trembling, clicked in protest. "High Excellency, surely this is—" Blorvax cut him off with a writhing motion of finality. "Humanity has rejected diplomacy. They have turned our might into farce. If we do not act now, they will only grow stronger." He gestured toward a holographic projection, flashing with intercepted intelligence. "Even their entertainment is preparation for war. Observe." Clips played of human media. Action movies where lone protagonists took on entire armies with nothing but a handgun and an unbreakable will. Sports that revolved around violent physical collisions. And perhaps most terrifying of all, A recording of a human child joyfully playing a strategy game where planetary conquest was the only goal. A collective shudder passed through the assembly. "We strike first," Blorvax declared, "before it is too late." Earth's lunar base Delta had seen its share of bizarre occurrences, but never before had a military base been thrown into full alert because of a janitor. Commanding Officer General Theodore Briggs, a veteran of 2 decades and a man who had personally ordered orbital strikes on hostile forces, found himself in the unsettling position of watching security footage of Janet McAllister single-handedly incapacitate 3 of the most feared assassins in the galaxy. He pinched the bridge of his nose as the playback looped once more, showing Mechavorn, 88, flailing helplessly on a slick floor. The briefing room was packed with high-ranking officials, each one struggling to comprehend what they were witnessing. The defense secretary cleared his throat, looking at Briggs as though waiting for him to provide some kind of rational explanation. Briggs exhaled slowly. "So let me get this straight." He gestured at the screen. "These 3, who are, to be clear, literal alien assassins, broke into our most secure lunar installation, got absolutely bodied by a janitor. And then what? Just left." "2 left," an intelligence officer corrected, flipping through his notes. "1 still in the janitor's closet." Briggs's expression remained unchanged. "Still. We're having trouble getting him out." Silence settled over the room. The president, patched into the meeting via secure video call, leaned forward, brow furrowed in what might have been confusion, amusement, or both. "And this janitor, what's her response to all this?" Briggs hesitated, then tapped a button on the console. The video feed switched to live security footage of Janet McAllister. She was in the staff break room, sitting at a table, casually eating a tuna sandwich. She looked up at the camera, unimpressed. "You people done spying on me, or what?" The room of military strategists exchanged uneasy glances. It was clear none of them had any idea how to proceed. Briggs sighed. "All right. Someone bring her in." Janet sat across from some of the most powerful figures on Earth. Generals, intelligence officers, even the damn president was here, virtually anyway. She took a sip of her coffee, waiting for them to say whatever nonsense they'd brought her in for. Briggs folded his hands. "Miss McAllister, you are aware that you single-handedly took down an elite team of alien assassins?" Jan nodded. "Yep." A pause. "Would you like to explain how?" She shrugged. "They weren't that bright." Briggs's eye twitched. "They are genetically enhanced, cybernetically modified, multidisciplinary killers." "And yet," Janet said, raising an eyebrow, "not a single one of them knew how to walk on a wet floor." Briggs opened his mouth, then closed it. The president, watching from a screen, let out a short laugh before coughing and regaining composure. "Well, Miss McAllister, I'd say you just saved us from a serious intergalactic incident." "Uh-huh. So does that mean I get a raise?" Briggs ignored that. "We have a situation. Intercepted transmissions suggest the Galactic Council is preparing an all-out assault. They believe humanity is too dangerous to be left unchecked." Janet took another sip of coffee. "That's nice." Briggs leaned forward, voice tense. "Miss McAllister, this is an extinction-level threat." Janet looked at him, completely unfazed. "I work a minimum-wage job in space. You think existential dread scares me?" Another silence. Briggs exhaled sharply. "They're sending their entire armada. We need to prepare." Janet finally set her cup down. "Uh-huh. And what exactly do you expect me to do about that?" The president cleared his throat. "Miss McAllister, you seem to possess an uncanny ability to disrupt alien tactics. We'd like you to consult on defensive strategies." Janet stared at him. "You want me to what?" Briggs, trying to recover control of the conversation, continued. "Your actions have demonstrated that their advanced training and technology are vulnerable to human unpredictability. We believe that if we apply your methods strategically, we might stand a chance." Janet narrowed her eyes. "So let me get this straight. You're asking me, a janitor, to save the planet?" Briggs hesitated. "In so many words." Janet leaned back, rubbing her temples. I swear to God, I just wanted to retire early. The president smiled. Save humanity, and I'll personally approve a very generous pension. Janet sighed, staring at her coffee as if searching for divine intervention. Fine, she muttered. Guess I gotta clean up another mess. Briggs exhaled in relief. The president grinned. Across the galaxy, an unstoppable armada prepared to descend upon Earth. And on the moon, a janitor rolled up her sleeves, preparing for war. The Galactic Armada descended upon Earth's orbit like a storm of silent death, an overwhelming display of firepower and technological supremacy. Warships the size of cities blotted out the stars, their hulls pulsing with the glow of energy reserves powerful enough to turn entire continents into dust. The air around them shimmered with a hum of gravitational stabilizers, their weapon systems locking onto every major human installation across the planet and its moon. From the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dominance, High Excellency Blorvax observed the pale blue planet with seething contempt. This was not a war. It was a correction, a necessary reset of cosmic order. Within the war room of Lunar Base Delta, General Briggs watched the incoming fleet with a hardened jaw, hands clasped behind his back. Analysts muttered nervously over tactical displays. Strategists whispered desperate contingency plans that would never hold against such an overwhelming force. The mood in the room was that of men already writing their own obituaries. And then there was Janet McAllister. She stood at the edge of the table, arms folded, staring at the readouts with the same expression she wore when someone forgot to replace the break room coffee filter. Her mop rested against her shoulder, upgraded, against her better judgment, with experimental nano-enhancements that military engineers had somehow managed to jury-rig overnight. A freshly brewed cup of coffee sat in her other hand, steaming as though none of this was even remotely out of the ordinary. Briggs cleared his throat. Miss McAllister, I understand you have a plan. Janet took a slow sip. I got a mop, a bad attitude, and 3 decades of dealing with workplace nonsense. So yeah, I got a plan. The room fell silent. A comms officer turned away from his console, his face pale. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the flagship. Briggs nodded, and the main screen flickered to life, revealing the bloated, shifting form of Blorvax. His gelatinous body pulsed with restrained rage, his translucent tendrils writhing in controlled fury. Humans, he sneered. Your defiance is at an end. Your species has been judged unfit for galactic coexistence. You are a plague of chaos upon the universe, and for the sake of order, you shall be. Janet yawned. A long, exaggerated yawn. Blorvax hesitated. What are you doing? Janet blinked at him, unimpressed. Oh, were you still talking? The Galactic Council chamber behind Blorvax erupted into shock murmurs. Briggs pinched the bridge of his nose, muttering, Oh my God. Blorvax's color deepened to an enraged crimson. You dare mock me? You stand on the precipice of annihilation, and you mock me. Janet took another sip of coffee, then smacked her lips. Listen, Blawfish, you're making a lot of threats, and I respect that. Really, it's cute. But you don't get how humans work. She set her coffee down and rolled her shoulders. See, we're not like your other little space conquests. We don't break under pressure. We just get annoying. Blorvax's tendrils twitched. You are insignificant. Janet smirked. Cool. Then come get me. She cut the transmission before he could respond. The room erupted into chaos. Officers shouted about provocation. Analysts scrambled to recalibrate their defenses. And Briggs simply stared at her in stunned disbelief. You just pissed off the most powerful armada in the known universe. Janet grabbed her mop. Yeah, that was the point. The first barrage came within moments, a precision strike aimed at the lunar base's central defenses. Beams of white-hot plasma surged toward the surface, but before they could land, an unexpected disruption rippled through space. Every ship in the Armada suddenly found their targeting systems hijacked. Janet's voice crackled through their communication relays. Hey, quick question, she said, her voice carrying an almost lazy amusement. How do you guys feel about elevator music? A low hum filled the void. Then it escalated. Through every warship in the Armada, blasting through their internal comms, their targeting systems, their emergency channels, came the relentless, inescapable sound of smooth jazz. 100,000 alien warriors recoiled in horror as a saxophone solo assaulted their senses. Blorvax himself spasmed, his gelatinous body undulating wildly. What is this torture? On the moon, Janet leaned against the comms console, a smug grin on her face. See, we humans have a little thing called office survival tactics. You sit in a crappy job long enough, you learn how to make people suffer. You ever been stuck in a corporate waiting room for hours with nothing but bad coffee and Kenny G on repeat? No. Well, congrats, now you have. Blorvax's form vibrated in sheer fury. Cease this at once. Janet casually turned a dial. The saxophone intensified. Across the Armada, entire squadrons faltered. Pilots convulsed as the inescapable melody wormed its way into their brains. AI interfaces tried, failed, to purge the interference. Briggs was staring at the monitors, wide-eyed. Dear God, she's weaponized bureaucracy. Janet cracked her knuckles. Oh, we're just getting started. She tapped a command, and the next phase of her plan went into effect. The janitorial drones, normally assigned to scrubbing the lunar base's floors, launched into orbit, coated in a newly developed cleaning solution that, unbeknownst to the Galactic Council, contained trace amounts of a chemical that was highly toxic to several species. The drones latched onto enemy warships like a swarm of vengeful Roombas, scrubbing aggressively at their exteriors. Alarms blared across the Eternal Dominance as the flagship's hull integrity began deteriorating. Blorvax's form flickered with sheer panic. What is happening? A bridge officer screamed. High Excellency, their weapons. No, their cleaning systems are too efficient. We are losing structural integrity. Blorvax turned back to the screen, only to find Janet twirling her mop like a battle staff. You underestimated the wrong species, buddy. You came at us with warships. We came at you with minimum wage perseverance and spite. Across the fleet, more ships faltered. Crew members abandoned their posts, unable to endure the combined psychological warfare of relentless jazz, uncontrollable sanitation bots, and the sheer realization that they were being bested by the very concept of human workplace misery. Blorvax's resolve crumbled. With a guttural howl, he slammed a tentacle on the emergency beacon. Retreat. Retreat. The Armada, once poised to reduce Earth to nothing, turned tail, warships vanishing into the void one by one, fleeing from the maddening horror of human ingenuity. Silence fell over the lunar base. Janet exhaled, leaning on her mop. Briggs turned to her, jaw slack. You just defeated the most advanced military force in the galaxy. She shrugged. Yeah, well, I've had worse Mondays. The president's voice crackled over the intercom, awe in his tone. Miss McAllister, I do believe you just saved humanity. Janet stretched, rolling out the stiffness in her shoulders. Cool. Can I get that pension now? The war was over. The Janitor won. And somewhere in the depths of space, the Galactic Council swore to never, ever mess with humanity again.